Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting Live. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath. On today's episode, we are talking about luxury. It's about how you make people feel. And my guest today is Chris Adams he's the CEO of international hospitality consulting firm, Ellis Adams Group. And welcome to the show, Chris.
Tracy, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I am excited to have you. And I've listened to numerous podcasts and articles, read a whole bunch of articles about you. And I mean, the one thing that you really honed in on all of that and all of those things that I listened to, it is really about how you make people feel. And luxury, even though we think luxury is up here and wherever, but it could actually be at, down here, because it is just how you make somebody feel.
It's all about meeting people where they are, right? I mean, I don't care where you're at and what makes you comfortable as far as potentially where you're staying or where you're shopping. It's how the person on the other side makes you feel. That's what determines what luxury actually is. I've had many experiences that aren't in the, what most would assume and consider to be quote unquote luxury, that I walk away saying that was a luxury experience. They made me feel something special. And that's all you can ever ask for. And those are the things that people remember. And I think when you look at luxury, your ability to create those experiences and make memories for people, those memories are made because of actions that we do that make them feel a certain way. And when we can feel a certain way, those get lodged in the brain, and it means that will never go away. It means 15, 20 years, we will still tell those stories of something that took place because of how someone or some place made us feel. And if we can focus our attention on how we affect people's feelings, we can create those memories. And if we can create those memories and those experiences, that helps drive business, it drives revenue, it drives guest engagement, and it drives employee engagement, because everyone's happier when we can make people feel something special.
And that's so true. And just before we got on the show, we were talking about empowering the employees to do their job and to feel like they own their job and do it well. And then that actually turns out and impacts the guests even more.
It does. When you look back, and my background of coming from Ritz Carlton hotels, and I bleed cobalt blue. I'm a diehard for the brand, and because I believe in what they've always stood for and the core of who they are as a brand. And we have to make sure that we're hiring the right people, right? We have to, that hiring process and going out and get the right ladies and gentlemen, the right teams in place it's more important than ever, especially with the crisis that we're dealing with right now. But once we bring them on and we hire those amazing ladies and gentlemen to do a very important job within our organization, allow them to do their jobs, right? I always say it's my job as a leader to clear the runway. It's my job to give them the tools to be successful and let them be great, to cast a vision so they know the direction they're going, but let them run. Let them be great at what they do. And Ritz Carlton's always done a phenomenal job of doing just that. And there's literally, they talk heavily about empowerment within their teams to make sure that they know that they have the power to make sure that the guest has an amazing experience. And it all comes back to, again, ask that question. Are we impacting the guest on the other side in a positive way? Am I doing the right thing? If we can answer those questions, we win.
It is, because why do you leave a job, right? You leave a job because you have a bad manager, right? Or typically that's the reason somebody leaves a job, because they just don't have somebody leading them in the right direction. And I want to go into that. I mean, because even you said something about a bartender. You're like, that bartender was really, really good. And they're like, they need to be a manager. And in one of your other pieces, it's like, And this is so true. Is you don't put somebody in a management role just because they're good at their job. Maybe they're a good people person, and that makes them a great bartender. They know how to mix drinks and whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know how to manage scheduling and all of that as well.
So the way I like to think of this is that there's a difference between management and leadership. And anyone that's ever listened to anything that I do or our team does, I am a leadership junkie. We are driven all about the piece of leadership and the differences between that and management. And the one thing I always like to say is this: would it sound ridiculous to you if I said, man, that bartender is absolutely phenomenal. This is my lead bartender. You know what we should do? We have an opening. We should make them the executive chef. No one in their right mind, right? That you laugh because that sounds ridiculous, right? Yeah. And why does that sound ridiculous? Well, the reason is because to be an executive chef, there is a very specific skill set that is necessary to be successful in that role, right? It's understanding the way a kitchen operates. It's understanding recipes and how to use your knives and all these things. And it's just mind blowing for us to think that anyone would take a position from a bartender and put them into an executive chef position because it is a very specified skill that's needed. Right. Why we don't think the exact same way about leadership? Why don't we say, do we have a specific skill set that is perfectly honed in on this individual to put them in a role to be successful? And if we don't think in that manner to say they're phenomenal at X, but sometimes A plus B doesn't always give us C. And if they're not prepared, if they don't have those natural gifts, talents, or they haven't been put in a position to understand what that leadership role looks like, we are doing them a disjustice because we're taking a high performing individual that we all praise and love. And a year and a half from now, they're going to be depressed. They're going to be miserable. They're going to be stressed out and on the verge of looking for another job because they might get fired because we didn't put them in a position to be successful. And that's not on them. That's on us, because at the end of the day, you take someone especially someone that's young, and next thing you know, you're getting praise and they're telling you nonstop how great you are at something. And we want to promote you and get you more money. Who's going to say no in that position? You're so excited to get an opportunity that, man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure out how to make it happen. And all we're doing is a disjustice to them and their futures by not setting them up for success. Now, does that mean that they can't become a great leader? No, absolutely. But if we're not doing our job and mentoring and understanding that the leader that's above them at that time is doing things to set them up for success for that next role, then we're not doing ourselves any favors by just throwing them into a position because they were great at something else.
Exactly. And that goes back to training and which I want to talk on. I mean, because where do there's a lot of training budgets that are very minimal, right? And or non-existent, right? And so your training's not necessarily always just standing behind the bar or washing dishes or becoming a server. I'm like, what is that training that does make them even better in the job that they have currently, and or also just asking them their aspirations. I'm like, do you want to do this? And, what is a lead bartender's job, right? Is that leading the bar? You hit the nail on the head first with just saying, are we asking questions? Right.
When's the last time we went to a server, a bar back, one of our dishwashers and said, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What dreams do you have? When's the last time we asked those questions? Because if we don't know what their passions are, how are we helping them get there? And that's our role as leaders, to maximize where their talent is. And I always say, determining where their talent and their passion intersect. If you can figure out where that crossroads is, it's magical, because now you're taking something that they absolutely love, and out of nowhere they realize, holy crap, I'm actually good at this too. And now that it's the floodgates open at that point, and they start becoming very happy in what they're doing. But to figure that out, we got to ask questions as leaders to make sure we're putting them in the right trajectory for their future and their path. So I think everything that you brought up is crucially important. Asking questions, number one. Two, making sure that we understand what their natural talents and gifts are so we can point them in the right direction so they can be successful. and making sure that we're not hiring people just to get us through the moment, but we're thinking about their long-term aspirations and what are we doing to give them a bigger purpose in their life. And right now, quickly before I know where you're going, this is we're in a position right now with labor that we hire to get us through the day. Yeah. Like we're so excited that someone showed up.
And then everybody quits.
They do, but they're quitting. They're quitting because we're hiring for the moment.
Right.
They don't feel a purpose. They don't feel that we really care about their future. They don't know that 5 years from now, what am I just going to be doing the same thing? Is this, did they really care? If another pandemic hits, am I the first one to go again?
Right.
So are we doing things to make sure that we're giving them a runway that we're helping clear the path for to get them where they want to be, not just filling a void that we have in the moment?
Yeah. Well, and I was talking to somebody last week, and I used to speak at Georgia State University in the intro to hospitality class. And I'm like, okay, how many of you are taking this class for an EZA? Right. And, a couple of them will raise their hand, and I'm like, okay, so what are you studying? And they're like accounting, marketing, whatever. I'm like, there is a fantastic job for you in accounting in this industry. And if you take that job, you go work at the Ritz Carlton Buckhead, because that's where you started, right? Go work at the Ritz Carlton Buckhead in accounting. You can travel the world if that's your goal with the company. Like, stay with the same company and go travel the world doing accounting. I'm like, why wouldn't you think of it that way? But I think everybody thinks of us as housekeepers, and front desk clerks versus the rest of that makes our industry so fabulous.
Yeah, the business attached to what actually goes on behind the scenes. And quickly going back to your training piece, I think that it is extremely important right now. One, you hit the nail on the head in the beginning when you said we have zero training budgets anymore, right? Because we can't find a way to attach an ROI to it. So it's the first thing we cut, right? But the reality is training and making sure that we're giving our teams the tools to be successful on how to be great at their jobs is what's going to drive revenue for us.
Right.
The crazy part is we have to be very conscious of the fact that our teams now learn differently than they did before. And one of the things that we struggle with in hospitality is we do something and we stick to it, right? We are a process-driven industry. And unfortunately, that's a good and bad thing, because processes make sure that we create habits which dictate behavior. The problem is we get in a rut that says, well, that's just how we do it.
Oh my gosh.
That's just how we do it, right? And we go, well, why do we check people in that way? Well, that's just how you check people in. That's how you design the hotel. So when you walk in, there's a desk right there, and that's how you check them in. But we're going to think outside the box. Instead of a big desk, we're going to make them pods. So now you walk up and it's a little bit, but the process has never changed.
Right.
Right. We get stuck in this rut. And unfortunately, from a training perspective, we have continued that same action and same course, which says, this is the way we've always trained. This is the onboarding process. Well, I think if you talk to anyone right now, whether we pull HR into this or any division of our organization, they will tell you that our teams are different. Our customers are different. The way they think, the way they act, what excites them. We're dealing with a shift in culture. Yet we have not shifted anything in regards to how we train and set them up for success, which means it takes us now, the leadership, to say, okay, I want to get X result, but the only way I can get X result is I need to change my training method for them to understand the result that I'm trying to get. Right? We can't continue to do the same thing over and over and expect different results. That's Einstein's definition of insanity. And I think that we have really struggled as an industry, and I will speak specifically about our industry, hospitality, with being able to think outside the box and get creative with how we train and how we implement the processes that we're trying to get done to get the results that we need to get. It's something we really need to look at.
We really do. And I want to, there was one episode, I don't remember which one it was, but you were talking about the back of the house systems, right? And me being a meeting planner and looking at the banquet event order, right? And this is the information I want on it. And at an event that I recently did, my banquet event order was 90 pages, 100 and something pages, but she had just done one that was like 400 pages long because the system is so antiquated and you can't, I mean, it's those kinds of things as well that we haven't updated. And I know there's a whole nother level of technology that we have to think about. I mean, I love being able to walk up to a door and open my room with my phone now, but it takes away that front desk thing too. You know?
I think that we have to find a way. And if this industry is going to continue to thrive, as I look at the sign behind your picture behind you says thrive. Perfect. We have to find a way to find the hybrid between the interaction of guest engagement and the people part of our industry and technology. Right. And do I think that we're ready to transition to everything is tech and we don't need individuals anywhere? No, I think that there's an element. I think the pandemic proved that we still crave human interaction. Right. There was a moment where, oh, my God, I get to be by myself for when this first started. That was like a great feeling. And then you realize pretty quick, wow, I didn't realize how much I crave seeing other people, being in other people's presence, popping into a restaurant or a bar and just having action and energy and entertainment going on behind me while I grab a quick bite to eat. There's something about that as humans, we crave it. And I think we now realize that. So our ability to find that hybrid between the use of technology, which is a huge asset, it is a huge win for us if we embrace it and find ways to utilize it, how it can help us be more efficient and give better guest experiences while not losing the human element of what we do.
Exactly. Now, I want to jump into food and beverage and some of the stuff that you train on and so I want you to explain one are you training bartenders how to be bartenders? Or are you training bartenders how to be, and the food and beverage aspect? So when you're opening a new property and you're opening 100 this year, 200? How many?
We will have this year over 200.
Okay. And actually, I guess we should go back and tell people what you do because I didn't do that at the beginning. So Chris Adams, of the CEO of the Ellis Adams Group, what do you actually do for a living?
So our team we're a consulting firm that works directly with a lot of luxury brands. And when I say luxury brands, again, we're trying to create those luxury experiences. And that experience is based on feelings. But we can do everything. Our team is set up to do everything from concept development. So the ideation side of whatever it might be. So that could be a hotel. It could be a food and beverage space, a concept. So coming up with that concept all the way into the actual interior design of it, and then the activation of it with everything in between. And we believe that we're in the art of storytelling with everything that we do. From the moment that the guest determines that they want to potentially go to X property, the storytelling begins. And that could be when they get onto a website. It could be when they make the decision in their local city to go to a restaurant somewhere and they jump in their car and start the drive. That drive to the restaurant is part of the story. And they go, well, Chris, how do you impact that? Many times I can't impact the drive from wherever they are to the destination they're getting to, but I need to understand it. I need to understand where the story starts because I need to know upon arrival if I need to help get them back engaged. Did they have a frustrating drive because it was tough to get there? So everything that we do, it's detail driven and it's about storytelling. And it'll be everything from creating that concept all the way to the boots on the ground that's activating it. And that means pre-opening, 2 weeks sometimes before a hotel or a restaurant opens, our team is in place, actually setting up the space, hands-on training with the team, making sure that we're giving them as much tools as possible. So when those first guests walk in the doors, they're getting the best experience they can possibly get. And so there's a lot more around that, but there's the 30-second, I guess, pitch of what our brand team does.
Okay. So when you're looking at a food and beverage concept, and I want to jump into this in the fact that I think the pandemic has changed a lot of people's eating habits, and as in a variety of different ways. One, because people wanted to be healthy because they didn't want to get COVID or they didn't want to get anything else, right? But two, we also saw the food supply change, right? And how can we get what we need, first it was toilet paper and then food and whatever. And then farmers were ditching their food, replanting their food. So how do you build that into the culture of that property and thinking about a new food and beverage program? Because it's, to be honest with you, as a meeting planner, I'm tired of checking off, okay, today I want the deli platter, tomorrow I want the Asian buffet. And, come on. That's like, I was doing that in the 1990s and 80s.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
And we're in 2021.
I know. Look, I think that people are already looking for a healthier direction and option with food. Mm-hmm. I think the pandemic took a lot of change that was already happening and it sped up the process. So it took everything that was happening and evolving over a decade long and said, no, we're going to compact that into a 2-year span. And now it's forced upon everyone to go, oh my God, where did this come from? Well, it's been coming. It's just been pushed a little quicker down the pipeline. So I think for us, it's making sure that, one, we need to ask great questions. We need to make sure that if we're putting a concept in, do we really understand what we're trying to accomplish? Do we understand when we look at a target demographic? And there's a question I ask always when we're developing something for someone. I say, okay, here's my question. In 2 years, I need to know what you identify as success so we can pop champagne together. Because if I know how to manage your expectations, then I know what we need to develop, right? If you look at me and Chris, honestly, I just want this to be an amenity for our guests. Let's minimize losing money, but I really just want this to be something cool. That's a very different mindset from somebody that says, man, I have mortgaged my home. I need this to make at least X per year. Otherwise, I can't survive. Those are two different types of concepts that we might try and put into place to ensure we get the result that they need from that concept. So one, we need to ask great questions to make sure we understand what the end result is supposed to be. That's first and foremost. Mm-hmm. Once we understand that, we need to now start dialing in and we need to look at sustainability. We need to look at scalability. We need to look at food chains. We need to look at zero waste. All these things, and you go, well, it's not as much as we need it as a good soundbite so we can get it in the news, as much as saying I need to make sure that we are leveraging everything we possibly can to be successful. Which means if I find a way to use zero waste, I'm able to use that lime 6 different times. It's cutting costs for them to make them more efficient. It means I don't need to order as many limes to get the result that I need, which means I'm pulling back on the food chain supply issues. So we have to look at all those types of things when rolling out a program, depending on where they're at, what they're trying to achieve, and what that end result needs to be. So I think asking great questions and making sure that we understand where they need to be in the next 2, 5, and 7 years is extremely important in us determining and figuring out how we're going to help you get there.
I love that lime story because it also ties into food allergies and dietary restrictions for whether you're a meeting planner or you're a restaurant too. It's like, so I'm going to go, well, let's just look at meeting planners. If you don't ask the question, I've got, there's a story of somebody, I'm going to give a filet mignon to somebody and you're vegan. I'm like, you just wasted how much money you spent on, I don't know what the price of filet mignon is right now, but I know it's skyrocketing. Right. So let's just say it's $100 plus the tax, plus the gratuity. You just wasted that out of your budget and you wasted that meal going to somebody else potentially. But as the operator, what did you just lose? Because you have to now go make another meal for somebody because you probably didn't have that. So I love the fact that you said, like, can I use this lime 6 different ways and I'm reducing my costs, right? And that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, we've got to look at every angle we possibly can. And sometimes it doesn't always work, right? I mean, but I think for our team, fail forward. Like throw stuff against the wall, see what works so we can say, okay, we know not to do that again. Or we know that could work, just not in this setting. We got to wait for a different circumstance for that to work. But if we're continuing, you said you're looking at the exact same buffets that you've seen since the 90s. Well, that's fear of failure. Right. It's a level of complacency, potentially laziness, lack of creativity because we're so bogged down with the everything we're having to deal with. We don't have enough help. So now let's just pull the menus I've always been doing because I know I can execute those. And I have 50 other things I'm trying to deal with because I don't have help. There's a number of reasons why that's happening. The problem is this. Our consumers come out of this pandemic and said, we want to spend money, right? Spending is if you look at data, spending is higher than it's ever been right now. People are spending money like I don't know where they're getting this money.
I don't know where they're getting it either.
God bless them. We are grateful that they are doing it, right? In our industry, they are spending money. So the consumer says, I want to spend money, but I also have a different value attached to my dollar now than what I had pre-pandemic, right? Because of everything, furloughs and all these things that have happened, my dollar has a different value. It gives a different feeling to me now, but I'm willing to spend it. The problem is when they come to our hospitality, our food and beverage operations, our hotels, whatever you want to say. And again, you can take this conversation, Tracy, and you can blanket this probably across any industry, but I'm going to keep it specifically to hospitality. The guest is coming in saying we want to spend money. The problem is we have less labor to execute it now. And the cost of goods has gone up, which means we're charging more. Our ADR, our average daily rates, are higher than they've ever been. So we're charging our guests more. They're spending more, but we're giving a lesser experience. That is not a good equation, right? No. If I had a nickel for every phone call, it's like, hey, what are we going to do to help fix these guest satisfaction scores for X hotel? We know the formula of what's taken place. We're charging the guests more. Our owners need to try and recoup what's happened over the past few years. I mean, I've seen recently somebody was charging $15, $17, $18 for a Michelob Ultra somewhere. It's mind blowing.
It was $26 in the airport in New York, and the
$26 at the airport.
Right, and the Port Authority came back and said, "Nope, you can't do that." But yeah,
right. Yeah. So the guest goes, "Wait a minute. So you want to charge me this, but you're giving me a lesser experience. You're giving me not even close to as good as experience I was having pre-pandemic, but you're charging me more." There's only so long that honeymoon phase of pandemic. We know they're doing the best they can. There comes a point where, okay, enough. Right. Enough. We've given you as much runway as we can for you to figure out that we're not going to continue to do this. And if we don't in our industry say, we cannot live in this bubble that says it's okay. Just keep fighting through. And miraculously one day we're going to wake up and everything's just going to go back to normal. That is such a naive way to think. It is irresponsible. We are being very bad stewards of the businesses that we've been entrusted with. If we continue this mindset of just fight through it, suck it up, and then hopefully it's going to work itself out. We have to do things different. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. Change has happened. Are we going to grow and meet our guests and our teams where they're at so we can create the next evolution of what hospitality is supposed to be? Or are we going to continue down this rabbit hole, this ridiculous cycle of beating our heads against the wall and having the same, Tracy, I've answered the same question.
I was going to say, I've heard your
podcast literally 1,000 times because everybody is looking for this magic 8 ball that, well, Chris, what should we do? Anybody that tells you that here's the answer, I guarantee you they have a sales pitch coming right after it. Like, buy my book, or no one has the magic 8 ball of what to do. The only thing that I can tell you that I guarantee you will impact your organization and put you on the right track to finding success is focus on what true leadership is, put people in place that can succeed, give them the tools to be successful, and train them how to do their jobs great. That's the only thing I can tell you right now that will at least start you down the right path.
There is a chef that I met in December. I was working an event, and he had put up a job posting for chefs for 3 months, and nobody responded. And his most recent hire was a guy whose only culinary experience was at Waffle House. And he said he comes to work on time. He leaves work on time. And I'm like, I just jotted in. He's like, he knows how to slice and dice and cover and smother and whatever. And he's like, he's my best.
You'll ever have.
Exactly. And he's like my best employee right now because he comes with ideas. Having worked at Waffle House, he knows how to talk to customers, right? He knows how to do that fast-paced whatever.
and he's teaching them. So you can teach that, he can teach them. And because this was a luxury brand, you can teach them that stuff. But he saw the promise, but he also did say, he goes, I would never have talked to him prior to COVID, because his only culinary experience was Waffle House. And that's where I think your thought process on leadership is like seeing this person, this lady or this gentleman who thrives in what they do, and how can you help build that person, right? And
I could not agree more. I love that story. I'm a big fan of Waffle House, by the way. If I'm on the East, on the West Coast, we don't have that. So when I'm on the East Coast, big fan of Waffle House. And I recently was at a Waffle House, and their manager was running around doing stuff, and they had their server that was waiting on me. And I was sitting at the little, the bar at Waffle House, counter service, right?
Yep.
And she was unbelievable. I mean, her guest engagement, her multitaskability, everything. I'm like, look, I was like, my God, like unbelievable. And I asked, I said, hey, how long have you worked here? She's like, I've been here 17 years.
I
said, why? I said, I'm out of curiosity. Why have you been here 17 years? And she goes, I absolutely love what I do. She goes, I just love what I do. She goes, I'm happy here. And it was such this aha moment where I go, you have an individual who's insanely talented. She's been there 17 years, and she has as much passion, if not more passion today as she did 17 years ago. And I watched the manager walk by and say, hey, really quick, can I grab you? And of course, he's like, what happened? Right? Because no one wants to talk to the manager unless what? And I was like, no, listen. I was like, I just want to let you know, I don't know how long you've been here. And I don't know what your style is of how you lead or how you run your operation, but whatever you're doing, that individual right there is absolutely phenomenal. Don't stop. And he looked at me, and he had this breath of, he just went, I can't thank you enough for saying that. And I said, well, what are you doing? And he goes, honestly, she just is really good at what she does. So I just stay out of her way. And I went, if you knew how good of a leader you are in being able to recognize that and allow this person to just be great, make sure she has everything she needs to go do what she does, and you win. Yeah. Let her be phenomenal. And it's a big Waffle House fan. So glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I haven't been to one in a while. It was probably in college, but we won't go there. It's been since college. But how because you mentioned sustainability, and that word can be used in two different ways. We need to sustain our business, but we also need to cut waste and reduce that, and be good stewards to the earth. And when you're designing those food and beverage programs, whether in a hotel or a restaurant, is that part of the culture that you're teaching, as well, saying, hey, this is where we stand? And are you seeing a lot of the brand saying, hey, this is what we're doing, and this has to now become part of our culture?
Yeah. I mean, Marriott International has a huge sustainability program, right? Okay. Of things that we should be doing and trying to implement to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the planet. So forget the business side for a minute. Let's talk about the planet. Marriott specifically has a phenomenal program that they continue to push hard onto. So it's not just it's not one of those things that a company says, we need to have this, right? Put it over there. I mean, they really push in on it and make sure that we are looking for new ways to continue to drive sustainability. So that's beautiful to be able to work with an organization that is so passionate about it. And looking for things like we talked about the lime and how do we use a lime a multitude of ways for zero waste. It's looking at, from a beverage perspective, using a company that we started working with that creates elixirs for us, which allows us to take multiple ingredients and turn it into one single ingredient using oils and different methods that they use to make it happen. It becomes shelf stable for us. It's something that's more cost effective. We're not using some of the traditional ways of doing it, so now it's cost effective / we're not wasting food in the process. We look at fresh juice companies, specifically of how because fresh juice is a necessity for a craft cocktail program. But at the same time, we know that buying, boxes of lemons and limes and pressing them, That's one, it's labor intensive. It's also, are we able to really utilize the shells and those things over and over? Are we doing the right thing? Or can we look at some companies, Twisted Alchemy, one specifically I work with, that is able to do actual, fresh juice for us that is cold pressed, and it comes in and it gives us shelf life. We're not wasting it. And we've even worked with those companies on their packaging of how it comes to the property. So it's taken a step further from saying, oh, good, well, let's just use them. Now we work with them and say, hey, what even better packaging can we use to make sure that we're being sustainable in how it's arriving to our hotels?
Right.
Filthy products is another one that does doing the same thing for us. So we really try to make sure that we're looking and working with these companies that are very sustainable forward in their thinking, to make sure that we're doing the right thing from top to bottom and not just checking a box to say we do it, but to make sure that we're honest to God doing the right thing, and along the way making good business decisions and creating efficiencies for the teams at the same time.
All right. So I want to ask, okay, where are we? 35 minutes. So I want to ask a question kind of along those lines of the cocktails. I don't drink, so I'm a huge mocktail fan. But I also have food allergies. So looking at the menu development and both bar and, menu food wise, do you see the development of, hey, let's make a lot of, because it would make it easier on staff, especially with limited staff, if you went ahead and made 80% of your menu gluten-free, or, partially, 50% of it vegan or whole food plant-based. Do you see that concept going forward? Is it a little bit hard because of the lack of staff? Because I would rather just be able to go onto a menu and say, I can eat this, this, and this before I go. And I'm going to throw a stat out at you really quickly first, is like people with food allergies, and this is from my friend Shandy, who owns Certistar. People with food allergies, their bill is typically 38% less than the standard diner. And if you could change your menus and flip that around so that my bill is equal to your bill every single time we go out, that's more money in your pocket.
Yeah, I don't.
That was a lot. Sorry.
No, I don't disagree with you all, but I will tell you, I think the answer to this goes back to our previous conversation, training. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think one of the biggest reasons why our menus aren't as accessible to people with allergies is because we just don't know how to answer the question. I don't think that a lot of times it's a matter of we don't have enough items as much as it is we don't know how to answer the question. So it's easier to say, we only have these 2 items because that's the only 2 I know, versus do we really have an understanding of our dishes and what is going into those dishes so we can answer properly. So I think, one, we could probably do a better job of making sure as we look at how we write our menus that the right information is going out. And I think you're starting to see, interestingly enough, there was a huge difference on how we describe menu items or to how we're doing it now. So an example would be, I was at a property and they had one of the best pastry chefs in the world, and they could not sell a dessert to save their lives.
Wow.
Like everyone's going like, how is this? This guy's literally like award winning, right? The problem was the way that they were described on the menu, the normal guest had no earthly idea what it was. It was so over the top in the way it was written. And so I'll use the term foo-foo, that the guest literally just said, you know what? We're going to skip dessert tonight, because they had no earthly idea what it was. Took those exact same items, did not change a thing. All we did was change the description. We changed the name to
communication
with vanilla bean ice cream, right?
Right.
Dessert sales went up, 800% or whatever it was. It's not many times a matter of we have the wrong items as much as it is how are we communicating what those items actually are, and ensuring that our teams know how to answer questions. And I think this goes back again. Are we training our teams and setting them up for success? Because right now we hire people. We're in a bind. I've seen people get hired at 10 a.m. and they are on the 2 p.m. shift in their new uniform, and they have not done a single bit of training. But based on your resume, you've been serving for 7 years, so you should be good. Go get them, Tiger. And we sit back and then we wonder like, man, I don't know why our guest scores just aren't great, or our average check's not as good as it should be, or we're not selling desserts, or Tracy can't order the things she really wants, so she's not going to come back. Well, what did we expect that was going to happen? And I think I had a conversation with someone day before yesterday, and you brought up communication. The more that we just communicate with our guest, the easier this process is going to be. Right. So you have the guest that comes in and they come to your restaurant and they go, yeah, I'd like to get a table. And we go, it's going to be an hour wait. And they sit there and they're yelling at you because I see 30 tables open in your restaurant right now. You can't see me. And they're ticked off. When the simple answer, when they call or they come in and say, just want to be very transparent with you. We have a certain level that we want to make sure we deliver for you. We have 3 servers on tonight. And with our 3 servers, they're only allowed to have 4 tables per server to ensure that you get the best experience possible. I just want to give you a heads up. I know you see a lot of empty tables. I want to make sure that our team gives you the best possible experience. And this is why it's going to be probably a 35-minute wait. Just that explanation alone is going to let them make a better decision. Like, hey, you know what? Cool, I'll stick around, or you know what, no big deal, I'm going to pop in down the street because we're on a time crunch. But at least I understand why. Right. And I think the more that we're able to simply communicate, then tell the guest exactly where we're at, what we're doing, why we're doing it, versus pack them in. Just, fill the restaurant. I know we've only got 2 servers on tonight. God bless them. And then we wonder why they quit the next day.
Right. Well, it reminds me, one of my sorority sisters posted on Facebook that her daughter was working at a cafe of sorts, and the manager, in her first 2 weeks, the manager quit, and then 2 other people quit, and she went to work that day, and the only person that showed up was a guy who was starting work that day. And she was opening up the cafe, and she said to them, she's like, I can make all the beverages, and I can make these 3 dishes. Do you want any of those? But that's where that owner, that operator left her. Right. Yeah. And she's like, at least it's encouraging her wanting to go back to school, and she's working through it. She's working because she's going to close down the cafe early because there's no staff and she can't possibly work that much, and that's kind of where we're putting it. All right. So it's sad. And I think one of my things too is that there are so many phenomenal people in this industry. And I think you and I are both wearing black. And I think our industry, we wear black and we hide behind the scenes. We're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and nobody knows that we exist. Right. And we need to shine the stories on the long careers that people have had in this industry and what you get out of it and the travel opportunities if you want them. And I think it's just a shame that we don't shine a light on that either, because we're just trying to survive.
Yeah, it is an industry. I always say hospitality industry, it takes a special individual. I believe hospitality industry is an industry that for individuals that have a heart for others. You truly at your core love taking care of others, of making other people happy. It's not about me, it's about them. And that is, I don't care what position you hold, that is the hospitality industry at its core. The beautiful thing about the hospitality industry is that, one, seeing other people happy, seeing other people, making memories for other people, watching people, whether it's a vacation or a holiday they're on, of something where you're watching families come together and laugh and cry and celebrate, being a part of weddings. I've attended more weddings that I have no idea who they are because I was either the planner on the wedding or dealing with a menu or something, right? And I think understanding that you get to be a part of these moments and you help create these moments and memories for people, it's something very special. Right. And when you take into account, I think something you had brought up earlier, and I don't think people realize, is the opportunity that comes with being in this industry. And it's not just about, I'm a server, I'm a bartender, I'm a front desk agent, I'm a housekeeper, an engineer, whatever it might be. I will speak about Marriott International specifically. When you join the Marriott family, you have the opportunity and ability to do anything you could possibly want to do. And the best part about it, you could do it anywhere in the world you want to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I don't think people really recognize and understand. And we had talked about this, whether you're in accounting or you're in culinary or front of the house service, or you never want to see a guest, or you're an engineer. In this industry, you have the opportunity to change people's lives, to come in contact with people from around the globe that you get to share stories with and create these magical memories for. And you can choose where you want to do it. If you want to do it in Australia, in London, New York, Los Angeles, it's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
It is completely up to you. And those opportunities are endless. Marriott has over 8,000 hotels globally, and they will welcome you with open arms anywhere you want to be. It's up to you, though. It's your choice. And there's very, very few industries that give you that kind of opportunity to be able to do that on a global scale, to see and experience things that you would never get to see or experience otherwise.
That's so true. And even what are those things where you just go in and you serve for a little while, you go work at a hotel.
Task force.
Task force. Yeah. You can do task force, or you can go work and live in Kuala Lumpur for years, right? And work at that property or wherever, right? Yeah. I think it does. And as a meeting planner, I get to go visit those properties, and
one of the things, Tracy, I think to point out on this is that I don't care where you're at in life.
Mm-hmm.
Hospitality industry is one of those places. One of my mentors is Brian Goldbrandt, and he's I think, where's Brian now? He's like president of Wynn Hotels or something, right? I mean, huge title.
Yeah.
Brian started off in this industry. He started off in this industry as if I remember right, he was a steward, a dishwasher, many, many years ago with Ritz Carlton, and worked his tail off. Did obviously very well, understood what leadership truly is. And now the guy is one of the most coveted positions for, one of the top brands in hospitality there is. I don't care where you're at in life. I don't care what your education level is. I don't care. You are important. Yeah. Your skill set is important. I believe wholeheartedly that every single person on this planet was birthed with a gift that they don't even realize they potentially have. It is up to us to help them identify it. And hospitality is one of those industries. Whatever your gift or talent is, we have a place for you. There is a place that fits where you're at and meets you where you are. It's just a matter of putting yourself in the right position. And I'm telling you, if you would have told me 20 years ago that this is what I'd be doing, and I would be hanging out on podcasts, talking to individuals like you about my career and what our team's doing and this international, I listen sometimes to as people introduce me on things, and I literally sit back and scratch my head like, how in the hell did this happen? Like how am I so lucky to have gotten here? Because I started as a pool attendant. I didn't graduate with a degree in hospitality.
Me neither.
My skill set happened to find a match in a certain space in hospitality, and I took advantage of that and ran with it. And I think that when people understand and realize that the opportunities that are in this industry, not everything's roses and rainbows, and nothing ever will be. I don't care where you go. But if you really take advantage of the opportunity, it's endless what you could do.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I think my professor in college would not, when I got almost failed my public speaking class, he would probably be surprised at where I am today, but I took it. All right. So I have one final question for you that I ask everybody. What does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience mean to you?
To me, it means that it's truly understanding. Let's start with our internal guests first, right? Okay. And that's our teams that have to execute. Have we done our due diligence to make sure that we have given them the tools to be successful? You know how passionate I am about leadership and training. And so for me, are we getting the right people in the doors? Are we having an impact on their lives? Are we giving them the tools to be successful? Are we setting them up for success? Are we putting them in a position that says, I'm going to help you grow from where you are to where you want to be? So first and foremost, when we talk about sustainability, we talk about inclusiveness. It starts internally for me with my team first, and making sure that my team, I'm doing my part as their leader to put them in the right position. Because if I can do that, I guarantee you that the guest piece, when our guests start coming into our spaces, feel that inclusiveness. They feel the fact that we're passionate about our jobs, that we care deeply about sustainability, not just of the business, but of the planet, of the concept of what we've created. They believe in it. They understand what it is. So for me, it starts with our teams internally first. And if we can nail that, everything else becomes a lot easier for us to execute. But we have to be able to invest into our people. If we invest in our people, and that sometimes is a financial investment, sometimes that is taking it on the chin with additional training, with thinking outside the box of how we train them, and we're pushing into them and imparting into them, I promise you everything else will just miraculously start to work itself out. But it starts with our teams and making sure that we're giving back to them first. I always say, I can't have my teams pour out to others unless I'm pouring into them. Mm-hmm. You can't pour out of an empty cup. So I have to make sure that I'm constantly pouring into my team to ensure that they are full to pour into our guests when they come in. And when you can figure out that chain reaction of how that happens, it is a beautiful thing to watch, because they're happy, our teams are happy, which means our guests are happy. If our guests are happy, they spend more money, which means our owners are happy. So it is a 360 experience right. if we can make that happen.
Oh, I love that. I mean, it is, because if you can do that, it people, profit, and planet, right? It all impacts all of those things. So, Chris Adams, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Lynn Wellish popped in here, and I put it up here a few minutes ago, but she said, and that's why I tip lots more. I love good and honest approach. And you do. I mean, those servers, whoever it is, I mean, you're going to give a good review. You're going to give them a better tip or whatever. And actually last week at my dad's 80th birthday party, one of our guests, they only had this much of the kind of wine she drinks, and she was a little bit annoyed. And the bartender went back and she found 3 more bottles of it. And Eileen ended up giving her a $20 tip, because she took the effort to go. She thought she didn't have any more. She's like, oh, we don't have any more. This is all we got. And she went and looked, and she was paid well for that.
It's an individual that simply says, I care more about you, and I want to make sure your experience is great.
Exactly.
Simple decision.
Yeah, exactly. And Jerry Diaz just said, excellent content. Thank you, Jerry. Nice to see you. Well, kind of see you. I see your picture, but there we go. All right, everybody. Thanks, Chris, for being here. If you want to reach Chris, you can find him at the ellisadamsinc.com. And his Instagram handle is let's see where that is. It's Chris Adams _EAG. You can find him there. And then on LinkedIn, Chris Adams, Ellis Adams Group, right?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for everything you're doing within the industry and shedding a light on this and helping drive people back to this amazing hospitality industry that we both get to be a part of.
Well, thank you. And hang on with me after I say goodbye to everybody. Everybody else, we'll be back here next week. Rachel Riggs from Marriotts Global Events Group is going to be with us. So next Wednesday, 12 o'clock, right here, same bat channel, same bat, whatever the rest of that phrase is. And until then, stay safe and eat well. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.